Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Tim's News Explosion on this Monday, the 14th of November, 2022. We are live on the Wilmsfront YouTube, DLive, and Odyssey channels, as well as on the Interactive Entropy software, where you can send a direct question through, and even better yet, send through a super chat to support not just this program, but all Unshackled productions. Hello to the regulars in the chat: Kesho, Lady of Charlotte, Naughty Design, and Peak Ozyman. Good to see you all there in the chat. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where early voting in the state election commenced today. Election day is, of course, on Saturday, November 26th. Or as the real Rukshan posted on Twitter, it is 2 weeks to stop the spread of Daniel Andrews and flatten the curve on human rights abuses, corruption, and debt. And we had both major parties have their official campaign launch yesterday. They were both carefully managed, staged affairs, or stage managed affairs. So Dan's was out in Cranbourne, which is a marginal Labor electorate, of course, that only had the ultra diehard Red Army there. Nobody, of course, from the public. The Liberals under leader Matthew Guy, or Matt Guy as he now likes to be known, they had their launch in Port Melbourne, where they unveiled what I thought was this clever card that they're going to give out to the public, frequent liar cards. So obviously a play on frequent flyer cards. So Dan Andrews has the red shirts platinum, Mr. Denial Andrews, and his member number is *0 IBAC 05, joined December 2014. And on the back, there's a QR code there. Get your exclusive use into the Chairman's Lounge, or should that be the Stairman's Lounge? You obviously should watch the two steps there in the frequent liar club. Obviously, there was another Sunday Herald Sun report that it took the ambulance 14 minutes to get to Dan Andrews after his two-step fall. It came from Rosebud, even though there's an ambulance depot just 1 minute down the road in Sorrento, but that's put down to perhaps they were changing shifts or disinfecting the ambulance because of Dan Andrews' old COVID rules. Gesho says, "Isn't red the noob's card?" Well, yes, Qantas, they have the frequent flyer program, so it's probably one of the best election puns, frequent liar. Yes, there was plenty of bribes in each of the party's campaign launches. They both offered money off electricity bills, and also, yes, free TAFE for the young'uns. There's also, free nursing fees. Dan announced that previously. But as the frequent liar cards showed, Dan is under 5 IBAC in investigations, though there is another expose on, well, an aspect of, well, what should I say, one of Dan's, he was attached to Dan the last couple of years, our chief health officer, Dr. Brett Sutton, who's disappeared completely from Dan's side, given that he still pushes masks and lots of other public health interventions all the time. So yeah, Brett Sutton is nowhere near Dan at the moment, but Brett Sutton, a number of years back, closed down a business called I Cook Foods because apparently they were responsible for some deaths, responsible for a death, I should say, when an elderly lady ate one of their sandwiches. That's what was alleged. And apparently a health inspector found a slug in their kitchen. But this has been a story, Sluggate, that has continued to be in the headlines because it appears that the slug was planted as it wasn't a slug native to the area. I Cook Foods was competing with another local food packager for elderly aged care run by the city of Dandenong. And also in the end, it was determined that this elderly lady did not die because of the iCook sandwiches, and all charges were dropped by Victoria Police against iCook founder Ian Cook, who's running as an independent against Dan Andrews in Mulgrave. It's been billed as a contest, Cook versus Crook. Now his business was ruined, of course, even though it never even got to court, any of the charges that were laid against him. So tonight, coming up, very shortly. So once you finish watching Tim's News Explosion, you should definitely watch Under Investigation with Liz Hayes, either on 9 Now or on the 60 Minutes YouTube channel, because they are doing an under investigation on Sluggate. And this is a story that no Victorian can afford to miss.
Thousands are at risk from a deadly bacteria in a sandwich.
A public health emergency.
There have been a number of positive samples that have turned up in the kitchen.
Becomes a full-blown government scandal.
There is no natural way that this slug should ever have been there in our premises.
The under investigation you have to see to believe.
You believe it was planted?
Going on the evidence, absolutely.
When whistleblowers reveal all.
The truth will be very embarrassing for some people.
Monday on 9.
And then on Wednesday night, it's the premiere of Peter Credlin's much promoted Sky News documentary, The Cult of Daniel Andrews. So that'll be this Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Melbourne time on Foxtel and the Flash News streaming app, though I'm sure that they'll post it to the Sky News YouTube channel like they did with the previous Peter Credlin documentary, Deadly Decisions, on the hotel quarantine fiasco of 2020, where the virus leaked out of hotel quarantine and set off the second wave of COVID in Victoria, and of course the second long extended police state lockdown. And as I was saying before, Dan, of course, despite the fact that he was so far ahead in the polls, but not too much now. This was a Redbridge poll published in the Herald Sun, and now the founder of Redbridge, he's actually married to a Labor MP, so this isn't just some poll that the Herald Sun invented. It's actually done by a well-respected polling company. So on the two-party preferred, Labor is still 53.5 to the coalition's 46.5. But the primary vote, Labor's down to around about 34% primary vote, coalition 34, the Greens 12.3, Independent 7, another party 2.9. But look at that, 10.4% still unsure. And the leans of unsure, 26% Labor, 20 Liberal, 8.5 Greens, 15% Independent, and 30% another party. Now, 73% agreed that the health system is in crisis, and who is best to fix it? 55% said Matthew Guy, where only 24% said Dan Andrews. And the suburban rail loop, which Matt Guy and the Liberals have pledged that they're going to scrap and redistribute the funds into healthcare. So do you agree or disagree with the Victorian Liberal Nationals policy to delay the construction? 38 strongly agree, 27 agree, 11.5% disagree, 7% strongly disagree. So there's still a few more polls to come out to show that that's a trend, but it's definitely tightening. And of course, Dan Andrews, he hardly dares show his face in public. And one of the Labor signs featuring Dan Andrews's head was vandalized. So it's supposed to say world-class public transport, but it says arse liquor. Now, this next one is photoshopped. Have I got it here? I thought, no way, I'll get this one in a moment. Yes, there was one which is photoshopped. It's photoshopped from a poster in Dan Andrews' own electorate of Mulgrave. They're not showing his face on Corflutes in Mulgrave, even though he is the local member. So this is the Photoshop here. Dan Andrews and Labor doing what matters: longest lockdowns, police brutality, no jabs, no jobs. And when we were going through lockdown number 6 last year, Dan Andrews, during one of the weeks when he was continuing to hector and lecture the public because he couldn't achieve his dream of COVID zero anymore, he scapegoated the Jews because there was an engagement party of a Jewish couple I'm not sure if it was in Caulfield or St Kilda, which spread COVID. Now, that engaged couple, they got so much anti-Semitic abuse that they had to leave the country. And of course, Dan Andrews is set VicPol, they sent their a whole bunch of cars to enforce Dan's rules to synagogues in Caulfield. And of course there was that footage of the Orthodox Jews trying to escape Victoria police by fleeing on the roofs, which of course brought up some very very dark. The imagery of that brought up some very dark history when the Jews were persecuted, which I couldn't believe that there was a rabbi who invited Dan Andrews to speak at a synagogue. And not surprisingly, one of the members of that congregation, I'm not sure if that's the term congregation when the gathering in a synagogue, but this is what happened.
Hey.
We won't forget what you did to us last year. We want you to say all that it's taxpayers' money, it's not your money, you're slashing around.
Now, you saw Dan Andrews just basically flatline there. All he said was sir. He was lost for words there. Now, the person who posted this, my favorite Melbourne Jew, Mechelhem Voikmer. I probably mispronounced that right. I tried to get his pronunciation right before I went on the show. So Mechelhem, he tweeted that witnesses claimed Dan Andrews MP had synagogue heckler removed by security. Daniel Andrews seemingly can't handle criticism or debate. Dan Andrews, probably when the cameras were off, remove that, he's making a mockery of my premiership. Now, Muckelheim, he has been in the news previously. I'll just bring myself back up on the screen there. So he was the victim of an anti-Semitic assault way back in 2006, like an actual physical anti-Semitic assault, not the not the new definition of anti-Semitic assault, which is apparently if you see a swastika in a footbath, that's enough to get De Vere all triggered. But Meckelham was the victim of an anti-Semitic assault, and so it was. It happened when he was walking home with his children. A minibus full of drunken louts who were from the Ocean Grove Footy Club, and the minibus at the time was driven by a then leading senior constable Terence Moore. So they yelled out to him, "Go the Nazis, fuck the Jews," and so this yelling occurred just before the bus stopped at a red light, and so Meckelham decided he was walking back from synagogue, so he'd just been to his house of worship. So he decided, well, he was not going to cop that. Ran to the bus driver's door and demanded to know who was in charge. The driver, he says, was surly, refused to identify himself. So it might have ended there, but a passenger snatched Volkheimer's hat and yarmulke, religious skull cap, through an open window. Passing motorist who saw this blocked the bus by parking his car in front of it. Bus driver wasn't happy. In fact, he allegedly tried to reverse and drive off. One of the footballers tossed Volkheimer's hat on the ground, but they still had his skull cap. When he demanded it back, someone in the bus punched him in the face, giving him a black eye. And despite that, Volkheimer, he wasn't going to be intimidated at all, despite the driver's demands not to call the police. Remember, he's an off-duty police officer. Someone did, and so this police officer, a then senior constable Terry Moore, going back to the top of this article here, he was actually promoted despite being the minibus driver, and he faced an internal inquiry by the 4th Ethical Standard Unit. So this was back in 2006, which there was a Labor government at that time as well. So yeah, there you have it there. So Meckelham Volkheimer, he knew just how bad Vicpol was back in 2006, and of course saw them at their full most brutal, and also and he's seen them at their most at their most corrupt as well. So yes, I mean, he is on his Twitter account. He is one of the most ferocious anti-Dan tweeters. This is his bio there. We follow each other. He is a husband and father of 4. He is a passionate advocate for human rights and equality at law for all. Now, he's in the seat of Caulfield, and he's probably as bewildered as I am, given that it's held by 0.6% by the Liberal Deputy Leader David Southwick. And now, despite Dan Andrews' scapegoating of the Jews last year, Labor is the favourite to win that seat of Caulfield. And of course, at the federal election, the seats where most of Melbourne's Jewish community lives, Goldstein and Higgins and Kooyong, Goldstein and Kooyong obviously voted for the Teals, who would, the Teals are the most paternalistic party, would probably like to bring back mask mandates at the very least. Certainly Monique Ryan would. And of course, Higgins was won by the Labor Party. Their candidate, Dr. Michelle Anajaraja, was also a mask zealot as well. Now, going on to, we've gone through some of the freebies, the bribes that Dan Andrews is giving out to try and bribe the voters to try and get re-elected. One of Dan's policies that he announced last week was free pads and tampons in public places, because he believes, Dan, that periods have been stigmatized, causing discomfort and embarrassment for women and girls when they're stuck without the products they need. The Andrews Labor government became the first in Australia to make free pads and tampons available in public schools. Now we'll continue to normalise periods. I don't know why they like women having periods. That's happened since ever women existed. So I don't like what's he mean that saying he's normalising periods? Is he implying that they were abnormal before and provide cost of living relief? So until 1,500 free tab and tampon machines at 700 public sites. So he says that this will save women and girls money to prevent them from being caught without the products that they need. Notice how Dan Andrews, he suddenly knows the definition of women and girls. Like, as we know previously, he's been one of the biggest he's been one of the leaders in the erasure of women. So this was a graphic that was put up by Simon Johnson, who's a public advocate in Melbourne's southern suburbs. This is how Dan Andrews refers to women. So he used the term "that person" back in November 2018, then again in January 2021. March 2021, he referred to as a woman as vacant as you, February 2022 as this one, and then twice in February last year, that person. But yeah, Dan Andrews, he didn't use the terminology people who menstruate, because in states in the US now, those blue states, they put tampons in the men's bathroom as well. Because yes, apparently, what is it? Men can have periods as well, and we're still this sort of worldview is also at our federal health bureaucracy. You'll remember how Professor Brendan Murphy, Secretary of the Australian Department of Health, couldn't define what a woman was when asked by Liberal Senator Alex Antic earlier this year. He had to take the question on notice. Alex Antic put Professor Brendan Murphy through the ringer again, asking him if men can get pregnant. And this was his, he couldn't give a straight answer. This is what transpired.
Senator Waters used the phrase pregnant persons twice, and I think in response the department used the phrase birthing clinics. Is it the position of the department that men can get pregnant and give birth?
Senator,
I'm sorry to do this to you.
Yeah, I mean, really.
But we need an answer. You are the Department of Health, but people put a lot of emphasis in this.
And you need to get pregnant and give birth, you need to have a functioning uterus. So whatever you call someone, and it's generally very unlikely that someone who is a man would have a uterus and give birth. So I think that's all we can really say.
So only biological women can get pregnant?
Well, you have to have functioning female reproductive organs to get pregnant and give birth. Yeah.
Which would limit it only to women, presumably. No. Okay. Have you ever been pregnant?
Okay.
Okay. So in any event, I'm sorry, I haven't quite finished. I've just got another question, Chair. I was actually going to ask the same question to the TGA, but I expect, because in fact when the TGA responded to me about a question in vaccination and pregnancy, the term pregnant persons was used. So, Professor Skerritt, do you want to have a go at that one? Does the TGA consider that men can get pregnant and give birth?
I think the Secretary has given the biology lesson that you have to have a uterus in order to become pregnant and carry a pregnancy through to full term, and therefore you have to be biologically female. Different language is used because obviously individuals may choose to represent themselves as different from their birth gender. So that's why we talk about pregnant persons. But I think it's pretty obvious you need to have a functional uterus to be able to carry a pregnancy.
Right. So, okay. I could go on and on about that, but I've got a neonatal test for myself, so got to go and check myself out.
Appreciate the assistance.
Just want to be clear. I just want to be careful. You never know when a bloke can get pregnant.
So there we go. So the people that can get pregnant are those with functioning uteruses. So not every person can get pregnant, but the people that can are those with functioning uteruses. Now, thankfully, Anthony Albanese, our Prime Minister, does know the definition of a woman. He was able to give a straight answer to that during one of the election debates. And also he told Joe Hildebrand in the Daily Telegraph that men can't get pregnant. I mean, we know that he was raised by a single mother who gave birth to him. He wasn't raised by a single parent. Always refers to his single mother, and everyone's wondering, given that Albo is at summit season. So there is the East Asia Summit, which I think is already just wrapped up in Cambodia. And guess who made an appearance at the East Asia Summit? None other than Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum chair. There he is. Jacinda Ardern, one of his global leaders, very pleased to see him there with that bright smile there. And Klaus has got, he always likes to dress up in a globalist fancy dress there. So next is the G20 summit in Bali. So it's just broken this evening that Anthony Albanese is going to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping, who is still continuing with the COVID zero policy, though he has relaxed testing and quarantine for travelers into China. They're almost at their record COVID cases, China. Now, Vladimir Putin is not going to the G20 in Bali because he's worried he'll be assassinated. His foreign minister instead, Sergei Lavrov, who it's just broken now, is in hospital with a heart condition. So we'll see if there's any more developments of that. But as I was mentioning, that yes, in regards to COVID, People's Republic of China and North Korea, the last COVID zero holdouts, and with the ever evolving Omicron sub variants, grandchildren of Omicron, police state brutal lockdowns aren't keeping COVID out, and probably the population is less compliant in China as well. Now we have the usual fear merchants who are coming back with wanting to try to lobby for mask mandates and working from home. You know the drill, because we're having another uptick because of Omicron XBB and also BQ1, but apparently there is a new Omicron, Australian Omicron subvariant just in Australia, Aussicron BR1. So we're finally giving birth to a variant, and now, of course, the mainstream media, they do love to pump out the COVID fear, because it probably gave them lots of clicks and eyeballs over the gets like they love to sell fear as well. So all the media were at Sydney's Circular Quay on Saturday because there was as David Hiscock of XYZ said, another COVID zombie death ship, which docked the Majestic Princess because there were 800 cases on board, and Carnival, who run Princess Cruises, said most of them were asymptomatic. New South Wales Health said that the ship was tier 3, indicate a high level of infection, and so they're allowed to disembark because COVID isolation is not mandatory anymore. But a lot of COVIDians, COVID hypochondriacs, have never been able to get over the Ruby Princess, so they all thought that the COVID positive passengers on this ship should have been imprisoned on this ship for how long, even though there's like so many. So like thousands and thousands of people in onshore Australia who've got COVID already. It's not like we're at COVID 0. But as I mentioned, the media were out there to see the Majestic Princess doc, and Sarah Stewart, a Today Show reporter, decided that she would go for ultimate drama by wearing a Today Show cloth mask. I mean, first of all, like, you're outside, like the COVID is not going to travel from the ship and just jump out and infect you. And a cloth mask doesn't even work. Like, if you're trying to avoid COVID, like, you should either wear a proper, well-fitted N95 mask. Of course, that's just for pandemic theatre as well. Now, of course, as well as pushing masks and return to restrictions, I mentioned last week on Trad Tasman Talk the mRNA addicts who want our ATAGI Vaccine Advisory Group to endorse another round of COVID boosters, but ATAGI is very unlikely to yield to their demands, and this is why, well, especially for young people, they're not going to be advising another COVID booster.
Well, one of the country's top advisors on vaccination says it's unlikely under 30s will be approved for a fourth COVID vaccine. ATAGI says the increased risk of myocarditis means the current vaccine schedule for younger people will likely stay as is. Attention is turning to antivirals to tackle the new Omicron wave.
Yes, the antivirals. Of course, the most heavily promoted is, of course, Pfizer's Paxlovid, where a lot of people who take a round of Paxlovid get a rebound infection. So you get 2 COVID infections for the price of 1. Now, we've had media sort of say, oh, like, will this lead to a Christmas lockdown? Like, they're real, like, obviously, a headline which says, could there be a lockdown? That gets a lot of clicks as well. Now, according to, well, modeling's always wrong, but this wave will probably peak at the end of November and, well, then go down. And so, no, it won't probably peak at Christmas. There seems to be a lot of people who would just love a ruined Christmas. I mean, this is the type of person that COVID fear and hysteria has bred. And, well, also the people who liked lockdown, they just what is that, love the doom news. Now, moving on to the US midterm results. So this is the latest. So the Senate was called. So this is from NBC News. So all the major decision desks have called that the Democrats will retain control of the Senate, because the Georgia runoff between Raphael Warnock, incumbent Democrat, and Herschel Walker, the Republican challenger, that runoff will be inconsequential, because the Democrats with 50, with Vice President Kamala Harris being able to cast a tiebreaker vote, as she has throughout the past 2 years, the Democrats will be able to get a majority even if Herschel Walker wins the Georgia runoff for the Republicans. And this is because they were able to, the Democrats, flip the Pennsylvania Senate seat with John Fetterman, the cognitively challenged John Fetterman, able to beat the Republican candidate, Dr. Melmot Oz of the Dr. Oz show. And I guess it's fair to assume that Joe Biden announced his intention to run for a second term, despite himself being cognitively challenged, because he was inspired by Fetterman's victory. And there's already speculation because since Kamala Harris is one of the most unpopular vice presidents ever, and not even Democrats like her, that the 2024 a Democrat ticket could be Biden Fetterman. It's a no-brainer. Certainly got that right there. And certainly, like the cognitively challenged Democrat candidates, what they say is actually less politically damaging than the the Democrats who actually do express their genuine beliefs, such as the perennial losers in Texas. Beto O'Rourke lost the gubernatorial election. Greg Abbott, the Republican governor, re-elected for a third term because they have no third term limits in Texas. Stacey Abrams losing to the Republican Governor Kemp in Georgia. What is still outstanding, though, is the Arizona gubernatorial race. They are so slow counting those votes, even though they've been counting for nearly a week. So it's 93% in, estimated rating 177,000. Katie Hobbs, the Democrat challenger, is still ahead. Carrie Lake, the Republican, at 49.5. So Katie Hobbs winning by 26,000 votes. And also they took forever to count the votes in Nevada and California. The reason why the House of Representatives hasn't been called, the NBC decision desk believe that the GOP will get a slim majority there, which is not the red wave they were hoping for. Heaps of California races are undecided because they're just so slow at counting the votes. Now, obviously, there was the slow count in the main Arizona province. So that was in. Hang on, I've got to get it here. If you remember the county that is the slowest to count there. But yes, that's the county where the voting machines were malfunctioning, and they were turning voters away. Somebody will be able to. Castle Match says, how are some California seats only at 39% counted? Well, because COVID's not over in that area, so they're all scared of going to the ballot at the voting centers with even if they wear 3 masks or one of those potty Darth Vader Bane masks. So yes, they still send their mail-in votes there. One state which did manage to count all the votes on election night was Florida, where Republican Governor Rod DeSantis was re-elected in a landslide by 19 points against Democrat challenger Charlie Crist, who he was elected governor in 2006 as a Republican, then became an independent, then tried to run for the U.S. Senate as a Democrat, lost, and now he's lost as a Democrat gubernatorial candidate. And obviously the COVID zealots, COVIDians, COVID crazies, whatever you want to call them, they called Ron DeSantis Death Santes because he kept Florida open. He fully opened Florida up even before the vaccines were rolled out, and Florida didn't fare any worse than all of the places that did, the states that did lock down. And so this, and obviously Florida attracted a lot of freedom migrants fleeing the blue lockdown states and their other failed policies. And so this is what DeSantis, his remarks about the new red state of Florida.
We have embraced freedom. We have maintained law and order. We have protected the rights of parents. We have respected our taxpayers, and we reject woke ideology. We fight the woke in the legislature. We fight the woke in the schools. We fight the woke in the corporations. We will never, ever surrender to the woke mob. Florida is where woke goes to die.
I think that's going to be the new bumper sticker on, the new slogan on Florida number plates, where woke goes to die. Now, it was Maricopa County in Arizona around Phoenix. So that's where the votes have been the slowest, and where the voting machines were malfunctioning there. Now, obviously, it's good that there is a free state now for Americans to migrate to. Also, another free state is Tennessee as well. That's where the Daily Wire is now headquartered. But of course, the downside of all of the pro-freedom and conservative people concentrating in two states, then that means that because they're solid red states, they're going to, like, in the electoral college, like, obviously the swing states are what matters. And so if more Republicans are migrating from, say, swing states to Tennessee and Florida, then it's more likely, because if you have a brain drain from all states, including swing states, then they're more easily won by the Democrats in the 2024 presidential election. And some of the ballot measure results. So ballot measures, they're like citizen initiated referenda. So these quite alarming. So in California, Proposition 1, right to abortion, yes, passed 65% of the vote. Amendment 2, remove right to abortion, add language to Kentucky Constitution to state that citizens do not have the right to the abortion and the state is not required to provide government funding for abortion. 52% said no. Michigan, right to abortion, add right to abortion in the Constitution. 56% voted yes. And this was probably the most disturbing and disgusting. Montana Referendum 131, require care for infants born alive. Establish that infants born alive at any stage of development are legal persons and require medical care to be provided for any infant born alive after an attempted abortion, induced labor or other method. This referendum also institute criminal penalties for healthcare providers who does not comply. 52% said no. Vermont, amendment, right to reproductive autonomy, add language to the Vermont Constitution to state that all individuals have a right to personal reproductive autonomy. 76% said yes. So yeah, in the rest of America, and even like Montana's a red state, like all the pro-abortion, all of those ballot measures, the pro-abortion vote won. And I'm a Stupid Moron says that America can burn in hell if they can't support babies being saved after born alive. And I assume that given the Democrats' did so well that I guess a lot of Americans, they're perfectly fine with a drag queen story time and also puberty blockers for children. Biden's interview with trans TikToker Dylan Mulvaney didn't hurt him at all. Maybe actually got him votes. That's the state of America. And obviously, it was called the TikTok election. Now, in case you didn't know, TikTok is owned by a Chinese company linked to the Chinese Communist Party. And as Raheem Kassam said, that especially when you see how the TikTok generation turned out and broke for the far left. Congratulations, by the way, to Communist China for their apparently totally illegal and unchallenged election interference, while CNN staffers shriek about how Elon Musk is trying to charge $8 for the very same verification process they've been outwardly demanding for a decade. And he goes further and mentions that TikTok later down here as well. So Democrats, they used TikTok to radicalize impressionable young voters, and they used issues like abortion and student loans to do it. Now, Raheem Kassam, he is on Team Trump. He's not on Team DeSantis. There are a lot of, what would you say, MAGA America First Republicans who are now switching to backing DeSantis in a Republican primary. Trump was way ahead of DeSantis in primary matchups polls before the midterms, but they have tightened now. Trump has attacked DeSantis on his Truth Social, saying that Ron DeSantis begged for his endorsement to save his flailing 2018 gubernatorial race, because DeSantis only won in 2018, the gubernatorial race, against Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum by 34,000 votes. And so this is who the residents of Florida nearly had as their governor. So this was Andrew Gillum at the beginning of 2020. He was photographed naked, passed out, likely from a drug overdose with a male prostitute there. So yes, it was the police body cam actually said that it was a meth orgy. So yes, that Ron DeSantis, and they tried to steal it from him. It was mainly Brownwood County, and I can't remember if it was Miami-Dade or Palm Beach County that tried to steal it from him, but because they're all solid blue areas. But DeSantis was able to flip Miami-Dade County and also Palm Beach County. Brownwood, which is where Fort Lauderdale is, that was still blue. But yes, so DeSantis, winning that narrowly, it has probably they didn't think at the time, many pundits, that election would be so consequential yet. And imagine what Florida would have been like, during COVID if Andrew Gillum had been the governor there. I mean, it would have been, you don't want to think. Now we mentioned there that the Democrats they're perfectly fine with using the CCP's platform of TikTok to reach Zoomers who overwhelmingly broke for the Democrats. This was two exit polls. So Zoomers 18 to 29s. This was by NBC News. 63% to Democrats, 35% to Republicans. AP, it was 53% to Democrats, 42% to Republicans for Zoomers. For Gen Y, both polls, 51% to the Democrats and 47-45 respectively to the Republicans there. And now the TikTok in China, it should be added, is completely like wholesome. Yet, like I swear that there must be some messing with the algorithm, the TikTok algorithm in Western nations, that it just like the people who rise to the top are the total degenerates, like ultra socialists, like the libs of TikTok. That like a lot of what that repost is stuff that is popular on TikTok. Obviously, libs of TikTok, that Twitter account, reposts it to expose just how like warped their views are. But they're actual like the people on TikTok viewing it like agree with it, and so this is why in part the midterms were as they were. But yes, of course, Elon Musk, he's the real danger to democracy. And at Biden's post-midterm press conference, he was asked about if he was going to investigate the dangerous Elon Musk.
Musk is a threat to U.S. national security, and should the U.S. and with the tools you have investigate his joint acquisition of Twitter with foreign governments, which include the Saudis?
I think that Elon Musk's cooperation and/or technical relationships with other countries is worthy of being looked at. Whether or not he is doing anything inappropriate, I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that it's worth being looked at. But that's all I'll say.
Now, one billionaire that the Biden administration through the SEC should look at is the founder of the FTX, a crypto exchange, Sam Bankman-Fried. So this crypto exchange, it basically works like a bank for crypto. So like for those of you who know Austrian economics, fractional reserve banking, so they only keep about 10% of your deposits in reserve. So this guy, the founder of it, he founded it in the Bahamas. His name, he has a very banker's name, as you can tell, Sam Bankman-Fried. So, and he was touted as the next big thing. The thing about obviously conventional banks, because they only keep about 10% of deposits on hand. If there's a bank run, then the whole system collapses. And so 8 billion has just been wiped from FTX, but he's only 30 years old. He was, this boy wonder, Sam Bankman-Fried. He was touted as, the next big thing, and he had celebrities shill for FTX, and this is what he was telling Bloomberg just a few months ago.
We have a few billion on our balance sheet right now. We are profitable. We're in a relatively strong place from a financial perspective. I want to be doing something net positive, like with the making money part. I want to be a good actor there. We've raised a few $1 billion over the course of the last couple of years, and we're a profitable business. With Voyager, I think there's $70 million there that we put in that I'm not sure we're ever seeing that $70 million again. We've not used the majority of the cash that we have on our balance sheet. We want to be flexible. We want to be in a position where we are looking forward at what we can be doing, where we can be most helpful, and where we can grow the most. I'm excited about Pathway Forward. I'm really excited about our leadership.
And what should have raised alarm bells for these these suckers who invested in his crypto exchange because he promised yields as well. And it was, what is that? The collateral was FTX's own token. Jim Cramer of CNBC said that he was going to be the next Goldman Sachs. And as those who follow finance should know, the inverse of what Jim Cramer says is always happens to be the case. So there were rumors that he was trying to flee to Argentina from the Bahamas, but he has been detained in the Bahamas. We don't know if he's arrested. And Elon Musk, he replied to Tom Fitton that he since he was a major Democrat donor during the midterms, there probably won't be an investigation there. So Bankman-Fried, his $39 million contribution was just below George Soros's there. So yes, used a lot of well, it wasn't his money to bankroll the Dems in the midterm. And we had Elon Musk. He also made a follow-up tweet to Tom Fitton there about the links between Sam Bankman-Fried and the head of the SEC, Gary Geisner, and to Glenn Ilsen, who's professor of economics at MIT, former boss of Gary Geisner, who also linked to Caroline Ellison, who is the CEO of Almada and dated Bankman-Fried, daughter of Glenn Ellison there. So that's the link there that Elon Musk, that circulating link there. That's why he's confident that they're not going to be investigated there. I mean, he should spend the rest of his life in prison like Bernie Madoff did. Exactly. Banksters. Now, before I finish the show for tonight, so obviously with the state election now less than 2 weeks away, and given that there's another worldwide freedom rally, as the name suggests, worldwide this Saturday, the Melbourne Freedom Rally will have a local motto to it. Dan Andrews must go. Victoria stands united against Dan Andrews and the Victorian Labor government. Worldwide Rally for Freedom, Saturday, November 19th, Parliament House, 12 p.m. There was another freedom rally this weekend where there was a scuffle between a couple of protesters and Victoria Police.
Victorians in their own hearts. Get off! Get off!
Now, the dance stands call freedom activists who are at the CBD every weekend cookers. Unbeknownst to them, there are many actual cookers, those who, well, cook and consume meth and heroin in Melbourne. We are Melbourne is the meth capital of Australia. And so the Herald Sun had Junkie the Druggo state. Now, obviously, we have in Victoria a preferential voting system in the lower house. And so given that to be elected in a lower house seat, you need to have 50% plus 1% of the vote because when it gets down to two candidates, obviously one ends up with more than 50%. The Victorian Liberal Party announced that they would be putting Labor last, which means that they're putting the Greens above Labor, which could lead to a hung parliament and a Labor-Green minority government. This is extremely controversial amongst centre-right people because the Greens are, well, philosophically, they're further left than Labor, though Victorian Labor and Victorian Greens, I mean, there's not much difference, splitting hairs here. And Victorian Liberals, the people that made the decision, are probably thinking that if they don't win, that a Labor Greens minority government would be even more disastrous for the state than just a majority Andrews Labor government. So, because obviously when there was a Labor Greens minority government at the federal level after the 2010 election, Adam Bank got elected on Liberal preferences. That was a disaster for Julia Gillard as Prime Minister, and Tony Abbott won in a landslide in 2013. Though Victoria would have to suffer for 4 years, because it's 4-year terms, another 4 years in that situation, whereas that Australia as a whole only had to suffer for 3 years. So this preference deal could give the Greens 6 lower house seats. Now, in the upper house, the Victorian upper house voting system still use group voting tickets. So if you put a 1 above the line, their preferences are determined by the party legislative tickets. So Anthony Green has done Legislative Council calculators. I haven't had a detailed look at the tickets, but most of the freedom parties have preferenced each other. Most of the progressive parties have preferenced each other, though there are some centre-left, centrist and centre-right parties who are part of the Glenjury Preference Whisperer alliance as well. The party that's probably done best out of all the group voting tickets is Darren Hintz's Justice Party. He's running in the Southeast Metro region, and he's a very good chance to, obviously he's been in the federal Senate, so he's wanting to get into the Victorian Parliament. He's got a very good chance with the preferences there. Darren Hinch is pretty terrible on COVID. He likes more restrictions because he's pro-health. I mean, he's so pro-health, he's on his second liver. So if he was elected in Southeast Metro, he'd come at the expense of either David Limbrick of the Liberal Democrats or Morgan C. Jonas of the Freedom Party. Obviously up in Northern Metropolitan Region, Adam Somriak, a former Labor power broker, now running for the Democratic Labor Party, is trying to unseat Fiona Patten of the Reason Party. And then in the West, it's actually a crowded field of good candidates. The Angry Victorians Party, lead candidate Catherine Cummings, Bernie Finn for the Democratic Labor Party, and also Moira Deeming for the Liberal Party as well. Now, obviously, the Unshackled will have an election night live stream, which begins at 6 p.m. Melbourne time, Saturday, the 26th of November, when the polls close. This Saturday, we'll be covering the Freedom Rally that I just mentioned. So we will have a lot more coverage come closer to the election. And so I'll let you know through my own and the Unshackled's socials as well. Trad Tasman Talk will be this Friday as well, the third last show, because the show's wrapping up at the end of the year. So 6 p.m. Melbourne time on the Unshackled YouTube channel. It will be myself and Stephen Berry. Hadron Anti-Bullying says, if Dan wins, will you ever melt down, Tim? No, probably won't, because what is it? What is it? We like the expectation is still that, unless he loses in Mulgrave, that Dan is the favorite to be re-elected. I will certainly, be ecstatic if he and Labor loses. But this is probably another reason why Dan's ahead in the polls is because, like I was talking about with Freedom people traveling to Florida and Tennessee, making them solid blue state, solid Republican red states, but means the rest of America is blue. With all of the like Freedom people fleeing Victoria over the past 2.5 years, that means the Dan stands, like their influence, like their vote will count for more. They're like, because they're not fleeing because they love Dan. So like that's obviously, if you have more people who would have voted against Dan fleeing, like they're not going to be voting this election. So you see what I mean there. Colin Fedbold said Shooters Vision, Farmers Party preference, Labor there. Yes, I encourage all of you to look at the group voting tickets, or if you want to decide your preferences, vote below the line. You have to vote at least 1 to 5 below the line for your vote to count in the upper house, and obviously in the lower house you have to number all the boxes depending on what your candidate is. But obviously we'll do a few more shows before election time, so I'll make sure to reinforce the correct, well, when I say correct voting information, to make sure that you count a valid vote, because you know, democracy, like we all get one vote, so you have to make sure that you cast a valid vote, because an informal vote is a wasted vote. All right, everybody. Thank you all for watching tonight. Good to see the regulars in the chat again, and I'll see you on Friday. Stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy, and stay happy as well. Good night, everybody.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.